You're alone in a hotel room. You glance at the mirror, and there's someone standing behind you. But when you turn around, the room is empty. You're not alone, and you never will be again. It was a stormy night in late October when Emily, a weary traveler, arrived at the infamous Langford Hotel. Nestled on the outskirts of a quiet town, the hotel had a reputation, a dark, unsettling history that no one dared speak of out loud. The kind of place you'd only hear about in whispered conversations at the local diner. Guests came, but many never returned, and those who did always had a wild, haunted look in their eyes. Emily, new to town and on her way to a business conference, had no idea what awaited her. She had made the reservation online, enticed by the low rates and the promise of a good night's sleep before her early morning meeting. The old building looked inviting enough. Its grand architecture made it stand out from the surrounding modern hotels. But there was something off about it. The lobby was dimly lit, with flickering chandeliers that cast eerie shadows across the walls. The desk clerk, a thin, pale man with deep-set eyes, greeted her in a monotone voice. "Welcome to the Langford Hotel. Room 666 is available. You're the only guest tonight," he said, his lips curling into an almost imperceptible smile. Emily raised an eyebrow. The room number was a bit unsettling, but she figured it was just a coincidence. The clerk handed her a key, old-fashioned, brass, with the number 666 engraved on it. "Enjoy your stay," he murmured, his voice dropping slightly, and his eyes fixed on hers for a moment longer than was comfortable. She forced a smile and took the key, trying to brush off the strange feeling crawling up her spine. As Emily made her way to the elevator, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The hotel felt unnaturally silent, as if the building was holding its breath. She entered the elevator, the door creaking shut behind her. The ride up was slow, agonically slow, like the elevator was reluctant to move. When it finally reached the 6th floor, the door opened with an eerie screech. The hallway stretched ahead in a long, dim corridor. The walls were lined with old, faded wallpaper that seemed to ripple slightly in the poor light. The air smelled musty, like mildew mixed with something ancient. She hesitated, but moved toward room 666, which stood at the far end of the hall. The door seemed to tower over her, its heavy wood groaning as she approached. With a deep breath, Emily slid the key into the lock and opened the door. The room was cold, far colder than it should have been. The furniture was old, dark wood with ornate carvings and covered in dusty sheets. The bed, a large four-poster, had deep red curtains drawn shut, and a heavy mirror stood across from it. The walls seemed to close in around her, and the distant sound of thunder rumbled in the background. Emily set down her bag and glanced at the mirror. She froze. There, in the reflection, standing behind her, was a figure, a woman, with long, tangled hair, dressed in an old-fashioned nightgown. Her skin was pale, almost translucent. Her eyes were hollow, black pits, and her mouth twisted into a silent scream. Emily spun around, heart racing, but there was no one there. The room was empty.
Just my imagination, she muttered, trying to calm herself. She moved to the bed and pulled back the curtains, trying to shake the feeling of being watched. As she did, the mirror caught her attention again. This time, the figure was closer, standing directly behind her reflection. The woman's mouth was moving now, as if trying to speak, but no sound came out. The reflection started to distort like a film reel unraveling, and the woman's face twisted into an expression of pure terror. Emily's breath caught in her throat as the figure's hands reached out from the mirror, her fingers curling in the air as though trying to grab her. With a scream, Emily turned and bolted for the door, her mind racing. She yanked at the handle, but the door wouldn't open. The metal seemed to bend and shift as if something was pressing against it from the other side. She tried again, her heart pounding in her chest, but it was no use. The temperature dropped even further. Her breath became visible in the freezing air. The lights above flickered, then went out completely, leaving her in darkness. From the shadows, a low, guttural voice whispered, "You can never leave." Suddenly, the door flew open, and Emily stumbled out into the hallway, gasping for air. The mirror, her reflection, was gone. But the hallway had changed. The walls seemed to stretch impossibly long, and the air was thick with the smell of rot. The flickering lights cast strange shadows that danced and twisted as if alive. And at the end of the hall, she could hear the faint sound of whispering voices beckoning her forward. She knew she had to get out, but as she ran, the hallway seemed to stretch farther and farther away from her. Every time she thought she was near the stairs, she found herself back at the same spot, staring at the same dark door. Behind her, she could feel the presence, something watching, something following. She dared not look back. Her feet moved faster, but the whispers grew louder, more insistent. "You can never leave." Emily's panic reached her peak as she ran faster, the hallway stretching on endlessly. The whispers turned into laughter, mocking every move. Her breath came in ragged gasps as she rounded the corner, only to stop dead in her tracks. Room 666. The door was now open. Inside, the mirror was back, and the woman, the reflection, was stood there smiling at her with a twisted, malicious grin. But this time, Emily didn't see herself. She saw the pale, ghostly woman staring back at her from the other side of the glass, reaching out with long, bony fingers. Before Emily could react, the door slammed shut behind her, trapping her inside with the mirror. And just as she turned to flee, she heard it again, the voice, now clear and final, whispering one last time, "You can never leave." And then the mirror shattered. The next morning, the Langford Hotel's receptionist stared at the empty guest book. Room 666 was marked as vacant, but there was no sign of Emily. The only clue left behind was a single shattered piece of glass from the mirror and a faint, cold breath that seemed to linger in the air.